I'll just throw this story out there. This was I was partway into my financial career, and I was still having some money issues. And I sat down with my financial guy, and honestly, I was afraid to put it on paper.
What?
Yeah. Even though I know this is the best way to go, for me it was difficult. And I'm the one who's preaching it all the time. So if it's hard for me, I know how hard it is for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's survival mode. What you doing?
One. Welcome to another edition of Survival Mode. What you doing? I'm Bert Robinson.
I'm Kevin Beers.
And we are going to talk about today financial principles. Are you ready?
That sounds like really boring.
No. We don't do boring here.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, we don't do boring.
Why are we talking about financial principles?
Okay, well, people need to understand these principles to better educate themselves. Number one, on how money works and how to have your money work for you.
Okay. So, let's make this fun.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. What is the very first thing we need to do with our finances? Bert?
I'm going to tell you, Kevin.
Okay.
We need to do something like organize our finances.
Wow, organize. That sounds so
boring.
It sounds boring. Yeah.
Right. Well,
Well, how do you think we work with our clients? The very first thing we do once we have a conversation about what we're trying to achieve is we sit down and we look at just your daily expenses. What do you spend on a day-to-day basis throughout the entire month? And we put it down. We actually have a form that we fill out because they're the common expenses everybody has. So let's fill it out. Yeah, it sounds kind of boring, but it's only the first step. Now, once we have that, and actually that's the step that's most difficult for people because they don't want to see it on paper.
Oh, that's the part that really gets people upset.
Yeah.
Because the end result, when we say on paper that you have about sometimes $500 extra a month, okay, and then they look at their checking account and they say, well, where's the $500?
Right.
Okay, that's what bothers them.
And people know that they know they're either overspending or, well, I shouldn't say that because a lot of people don't know if they're overspending. A lot of people don't know if, all they know is I don't have money left over at the end of the month.
You want to know why? POS, point of sales.
That's often, that is often it. Now, a lot of older clients, what we find is that it's actually, they've dug themselves into a hole and now they're just servicing the hole.
Right.
At that point.
Now, when I talk about point of sales, let me be more specific in what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you using your debit card. Every time you use your debit card, that's the point of sales. And it comes directly out of your account. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, let me swipe. Oh, let me swipe. Let me put my chip in. And that's what you do.
Right. And people don't even know that they do that. A lot of times what I'd like people to do, this is a little more difficult for a lot of people, but I went through it myself just when I was trying to figure out what was happening. I kept a little notebook. And actually, I give my clients a little notebook. And I have them write down every time you pull money out of your pocket, every time you pull that debit card out, right? Well, actually, if you're using your debit card, you're getting a receipt. So if you got a receipt, no big deal. But if you spend any cash, write it down if it's above a quarter.
Well, most people don't have the cash,
Well, that's true.
Nowadays. I mean, things have changed.
Right. But a lot of people who still might use cash, if you spend any money cash-wise, write it down. And then we get together after a month and we look at all your receipts, all your bank statements, and we find where did this money go. So now we have, because a lot of times we fill out that form I was talking about and we look at that and like you said, it's like, well, there should be $500 left over at the end of the month.
No.
And there isn't. Well, that $500 is being spent somewhere.
Let me see. When I go out to eat, mm-hmm. Okay, let me see. when I buy lunch.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of places it could be spent.
Exactly.
So basically what we're doing is we just want to find out where you're spending it. You would actually be surprised that once you know where you're spending it, as soon as you start spending it in those places you didn't know about originally, because you just didn't remember, as soon as you go there again, you think, as you're getting ready to spend the money, it's like, oh, this is one of those places where I spend money I don't know that I spend it. And now you're aware. And one of the things about financial principles in general is once you understand them, you start to notice things. And that's how you change the way you do things. I find it very effective just knowing where things are going. Now, people are afraid to put it down on paper because when you do that, you are exposed.
You see
completely.
it.
You can see it.
And you're committed. It's like, oh my goodness, what have I done? What have I done? And this is exactly what I hear some of our clients say. They're so frustrated after this.
Yes. This is the part that hurts. This is the one that hurts. Mm-hmm. Now, Bert and I both went through this ourselves. So we went through, looked at all my numbers, and for my wife and I, we love to eat out. And you know what? Where was our biggest expense and the biggest waste of our money? Eating out. So we decided together that we would eat out less. Now, I love to cook, but I also love to eat out, so it's not that big of a deal. So I just began doing more of the cooking at home.
You did more of the cooking?
Yeah, I've always done more of the cooking, but now I really do a lot more of the cooking.
So do I. I do a lot more.
And I enjoy it. I enjoy feeding people. And actually, what's really nice is now, even though we got COVID going on, if I get a chance to feed other people, I can afford to do that because if we had to eat out for the same price, it's just me and my wife. Okay. I can feed more people. So, my daughters will come, my grandchildren. I can feed more people on the same amount of money. So it actually enhanced my family life in that way. But the whole point is we got to figure out where that money's going.
Exactly.
Now, again, that's the hard part. Once you know where it is, now we can start figuring out what to do about it.
Now, and Kevin, also that comes in with that self-discipline that we talk about because once you know it, okay, then you have to apply it.
Yes. Now, like we said, we don't make decisions for our clients on these things. They have to decide whether or not they're willing to do it. Like for myself, my wife, we love eating out. Well, we could look at those numbers and say, you know what, we're not going to eat out less. Let's find something else we might want to cut out because we just enjoy eating out so much. My financial guy is not going to tell me you can't do that. Because yes, I can. It's my money.
Exactly.
So, but he can suggest otherwise, or just say. Actually, he didn't even have to suggest it. You just look at those numbers and say, "Oh, that's a problem right there." It's so easy to see.
And you see it, but it's not. People want to make things more difficult than it is. Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if you want to do something about it, you have to change.
Right.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You have to change.
And someone who sits down with you and walks through this process with you, because they see this on a daily basis, they can often make suggestions to help you. We talked about one on a previous show of just changing the cable pack. Actually, someone who dropped the cable. I did this myself. We dropped the cable and got Netflix instead because it satisfied what we needed or what we wanted. Television is not a need, in my opinion, but for some people it might be.
It's a need.
For some people,
I've got to watch my football.
I've been watching TV since the day I was born. I mean, there's always been a TV in the house. I'm not that old, so.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, so in a sense, for me, it might be a need because it's always been there. Or it's just something I'm accustomed to. But I know people who have said, you know what, I don't need TV at all. And they just don't even have a TV in their house. So it's possible.
Everybody is different. And that's what we want to do is we want to, should I say cater to their needs? Should I say that?
Well, they decide what a need is and what a want is, what a desire is. They make their own choices.
Oh, that's econ.
Yes.
That's chapter 1 in econ
Right.
101.
And yeah, and we're not going to contradict that. We can question it, but that's about as far as that's going to go. But this whole idea of organizing, the first step in organizing is get the list of what you're currently doing.
Get the information, and please, when you organize it, get all the information. Don't leave anything out. We talk about, the different accounts, the mortgage, the loans, the retirement accounts, all the different expenditures. Get them all and know your interest rates on especially the loans. Okay.
Right.
Because you can amateurize, and, with some loans, you can pay them off early by putting more on the principal.
Right.
Okay.
Because there are some loans that you cannot pay off early.
Exactly. You
And
got to know it.
Right. And if that's the case, and there's a lot of different ways we can look at this. I'd like to organize all the debts together, and then so we can start figuring out what to do with that. Now, I just saw, it may have been an ad. I didn't really look into it too closely, but someone basically saying there are now loans out there. Well, actually, it was sort of an ad, but it's a company that offers to restructure your student loans at a lower interest rate. So that can be a good thing. It could be a bad thing. It depends on your situation. My daughter's a school teacher. If she is consistent in paying her student loan for 10 years, at the end of 10 years, because she's a teacher,
It's done.
it'll be canceled. Whatever's left is canceled. So for her, refinancing would not make sense.
Right.
Because she's actually quite a few years into it at this point. So for her to say, well, I'll restructure it, then she has to pay the whole thing back. Take advantage of the programs that might be out there. Now, if you're not a school teacher and it's not going to help you, hey, refinancing might be a way to go.
And everybody's situation is different. And that's what we do. We look at every single aspect of assets, liabilities, your revenues, and all those different things to make sure that you're doing what's best for you.
Right. Now, some people will say, well, if I'm going to organize my finances, I have to use some kind of software. I have to make a spreadsheet. I have to do that. There's all these different ways of doing it. Honestly, I found paper and pencil seems to work really, really well. Now, I'm
See, we're different there.
I'm a tech guy, so yeah, I like a spreadsheet. But
the spreadsheet, or some of the, I really like that because I can put the graphs on and I can see, the graphs.
Right.
People are visual. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are visual.
Right. But what I'm saying here is there are simple ways to do it. There are more expensive ways to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So if you have to buy the software to make all this work, it may not be the best choice for you. So just be aware that it can be as simple as paper and pencil. So that's the process of organizing it. Just getting it organized so you can look at it and start making decisions with it.
And that's the beginning. That's the beginning step.
And believe it or not, I'll just throw this story out there. This was, I was partway into my financial career, and I was still having some money issues. And I sat down with my financial guy, and honestly, I was afraid to put it on paper.
What?
Yeah. Even though I know this is the best way to go, for me it was difficult. And I'm the one who's preaching it all the time. So if it's hard for me, I know how hard it is for everybody else.
Yeah. I remember that, all of my debts and things of that nature. I was not that structured person, in the beginning of this financial career. I was not.
Right.
Okay. Then, I had to get that way. Okay. Because how can I help somebody else if I'm not that way right now?
Right.
It's very difficult for me to do. Okay. You got to really practice what you preach.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You really do. So when I tell somebody, I say, listen, I went through the struggles. You know, I was living paycheck to paycheck at one particular time, and these things had to change.
Right.
It had to change for me. You know, it's everybody goes through it.
A lot of times your financial person had to go through the same struggles that you're going through, because we weren't all born into this world just having that kind of discipline that we just sat down and just did what we had to do.
Nope.
No,
At least the two of us.
well, true. And I'm a relatively disciplined person, but there's some things that are just hard. You know, like once I saw those things on paper, I had to admit that I made mistakes. I don't like to be wrong. So
We do know that.
yeah, so that makes it very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah,
So I think we can kind of get off of the
Organization.
organization.
All right, let's go
I
to...
think you got the point. We got to organize those finances.
Right. Let's go. This next topic, Kevin, go ahead and talk about it, because I know this is one of your favorites.
Well, basically, spend less than you earn. It sounds like common sense. Just spend less than what you earn. But who does that, right? We live in America. Nobody does that. Now, if you look at people who have retired and are living relatively comfortably, and they never had this high-paying job or anything like that, but they still retired comfortably, if you ask them what their secret was, they just say, I didn't spend as much as I earned. That is always the answer. So if you want it, now, what I hear a lot of times when I sit down with people is, well, I can't live on what I make. I do have to spend a little bit more than I earn.
No, you don't.
Well,
No, you don't.
That's what I hear. Now, what I have found is someone who makes $60,000 a year, and actually, believe it or not, that's around the national average right now.
Mm-hmm.
But they make $60,000 a year, and it's like, you know what? I can't really live on that. Life is too expensive. And then you'll meet somebody who makes $40,000 a year, lives in the same area basically, and they're doing just fine. What's the difference?
Because that person is not living above their means.
Right.
I heard that. I heard that from my mom and my dad. You know.
Well, you know what the difference between those two people is?
Go ahead.
The real difference?
Go ahead. Tell me the real difference.
Priorities.
Say it one more time.
Priorities.
Yes.
Your priorities determine where you spend your money.
Exactly.
Now, you could say, well, that one making 40,000 isn't married, doesn't have kids, and the other one has 4 kids or whatever. No, they were exactly the same. One just made more money than the other, but one prioritized something different over the other.
What was that? Self-discipline again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, there is a point that you get to as far as your earnings go, that when you get below that point, you don't make enough money. You just don't make enough money. Typically, that is not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people, it always comes down to what are your priorities.
The priority. Now, when we talk about priorities, what is, in your opinion, Kevin, what is the number one priority that you should have? Now, this goes back to economics.
Okay.
What are your needs?
Right. Oh, okay. I see where you're going. Okay. Yeah. So you got your needs, you got your wants, and you got your desires.
Now, what is your definition of needs?
That's where the difference will come in.
Exactly.
Right. And I mentioned before, not everybody feels they need a TV. I grew up with TV. Honestly, it was black and white. We had 3 channels, but I grew up with TV. So for me, for a long time actually, TV was considered a need.
Mm-hmm.
But as I got a little bit older and wiser, I would hope, I started to see that, I don't really need TV. There are other things I could be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it really depends on where you are, and comes down to a matter of priorities. If you have kids, a lot of times TV feels like a need, because there's just times you want to park them in front of that TV and just so you can get a few minutes to yourself.
See, that's another topic on a different show.
Topic. But at the same time, it's honestly, my grandchildren are under the age of 5. There are just times where you want to park them in front of something just so you can get a little bit of a break. It happens. It happens.
And I'm not going to sit up here in front. I did it. Okay, I did it with my son.
Well, I think we all did it.
Yeah. Okay.
But see, and that's just it. So, and you can be okay with that. I'm not saying that's not a need. What I'm saying is, you have to figure out what your true needs are. Now, being able to park them in front of a TV, and even if it's only done once a week, it might still be a need. Mm-hmm. Or is it really a want? You have to decide for yourself. Now, for some people, one of the things I have learned about young people, and maybe I was the same way, maybe I wasn't, I'm not 100% sure because our environments were completely different. My children moved out and got married. I have 2 daughters, so they both moved out and got married. And they're considering homes. So now we're talking about homes. Well, my children grew up in a house. I have a very nice house. I have 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms. Mm-hmm. I was working as a software engineer. I made good money. I could afford it. So that's what we had. Well, when my daughters go out in the world and they want to look for a house, they want that, nice, if they have children, every child gets a room to themselves. Mm-hmm. The bathroom, you don't have to share it with anybody. I mean, all these different things. They can't afford that house. It just is impossible because they're just entering into
the workforce,
and they're coming in at entry-level pay, and their husbands are at entry-level pay. They're not making enough money to afford that kind of a house. So what they think they need they got to start figuring that out.
Because it's not a need. It's a desire.
Yes.
That one right there in the beginning, I say that's a desire because, you know what you want and you know what you need. Mm-hmm. Okay, but when you spend, what is it? You spend less than you earn. Mm-hmm. Right now, you're going to be spending more than you earn.
Right, and even if you're at the break-even point, the fact that you're going to have to fix things if you own the home, you're going to start spending more than what you make. Now, that might mean, and this is why people end up digging holes for themselves, is, well, I just need a few things to fix something. So I'll put it on my credit card. But because
credit card?
On the credit card, yeah.
The double-edged sword credit card?
Yeah, exactly. Go back to the last show.
Okay.
But you start digging a hole I used my credit card just by that one thing to fix something, and something else came up. So I'm going to use it for that, but you're never really paying it back.
Exactly.
And pretty soon you've amounted, and honestly, if you start using your credit card a lot, you're going to start getting offers from other companies to use their credit cards because they see that, hey, this is somebody who spends money, and we can benefit from that. So we were having this conversation before we got started that a lot of times what we hear as we're growing up is that it's better to own than to rent.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and honestly, that depends on a lot of different things on which one is actually better. Actually, you'll hear some people who invest in real estate who will say, I will never actually own a home personally. That owning the homes is all about making money off of them.
Right.
And they'll rent instead. So whether you rent or own is going to depend on your situation. So for instance, if you're willing to take on a $1,500 mortgage for 30 years and you spend 5 years paying $1,500 on that mortgage, how much equity did you build up in your home?
It depends on...
It depends on interest rates and things like that, but it's really not going to be a lot of money. I should have had a number ready for this, but I don't. But it's not a lot of money. Now, let's say you rent for $1,000 a month, and that $500 that you would have paid toward the mortgage, just stick it in a savings account and don't even care about the interest rate. $500 a month for a year is $6,000, and over that same 5 years, you have $30,000 that you could use for a down payment on a home. The amount of equity you build up in your home isn't even going to come close to that.
And, okay, then that's delayed gratification right there.
Yes.
That's delayed gratification. Are you going to wait 5 years? But see, here's the thing that you got to understand, Kevin, is that when you do that, okay, do you have the self-discipline to hold on to that $30,000? And I'm being dead serious about that.
No, that's
Okay.
right. That's right.
Okay, because you see $30,000 in your account, okay, after 5 years, okay, what's going to happen? Are you going to use it? Because you need to be self-disciplined enough to hold it in that account and leave it there. Don't touch it.
Right.
So you can put that down payment on it, because things happen.
Right. And when I talk about the $30,000, I'm talking theoretically, because when you add people to it, it usually doesn't go exactly the way you thought it might go. But that's just it. If your goal is to buy that home, to build up that down payment
Of the home that you want.
of the home that you want, you're going to do it.
Okay.
I mean, that may be the motivating factor. So yeah, you got to, work toward it. So now you may be able to buy the home that you really want because you got this $30,000 down payment. Now your payment still may be $1,500 a month going forward, but you actually got a much nicer home, let's say.
And you've got more equity in the home
Right.
at a faster rate.
Right. And maybe you buy the exact same house, but because of the down payment, you could go with a 15-year mortgage rather than a 30-year mortgage. So the possibilities, having that extra money and building up that savings account, that actually gives you more choices. Now, if you can live like that, you are definitely spending less than what you're spending less than what you're making, and that's the whole goal. As long as you're spending less than you make,
Then you're doing what you need to do.
then you need to, right. And I find that most people, when they start seeing a bank account start to grow like that, a lot of times they
Get happy.
Bert was warning against, are you going to have the self-discipline to keep it in there? Well, if you make it past the first year, I would say, the whole concept of keeping the money in there is kind of solidified. And now you're looking at it like, oh, where can I get more money to put toward that? This whole process starts a little bit different. Like I said, after I didn't want to put my numbers down on paper when I had to do that.
But
And once we made decisions like, okay, we're not going to eat out as much. And then my financial guy actually asked me, can you do that? I mean, he knew I could do it, but I had to make it real. I just had to make it real.
And that real is just thinking about you doing it from just bit by bit by bit by bit. It
Right.
adds up. It adds up
Right.
at the end. It really does.
Now, one of the things I didn't talk about, I did say that, it's $30,000 and I didn't include any interest in that. So there are vehicles you can put that money into to generate interest too. So that can help you along the way.
Right.
Now, if we're only talking about 5 years, 5 years isn't a lot of time to accrue a lot of interest, but you can accrue a little bit, and that every little bit helps.
It does.
When you talk about finance, that is the way it is. Every little bit helps.
And you have to realize that time is your ally.
Yes.
Time is your ally. Okay. This when we talk about financial strategies and what we do, you have to remember that it's not a microwave. Okay, it's not going to happen real quick. You put the money in the microwave and it's going to grow.
Right.
You got to cook it. Okay.
Yep.
You got to cook it. Let it baste it.
Everything takes time. Typically, digging yourself into a hole of debt, it takes time to do that because in the beginning, you really try to prevent that from happening. But it just kind of seeps in there, and pretty soon you're standing in a hole you can't get out of.
Yeah.
So getting yourself out of that hole, it takes
A whole lot.
it takes time to get back out.
Wait.
Same thing here. Spending less than what you make. If you're currently spending more than what you make, it's going to take some steps to get there. It takes a little bit of time, and you probably have a hole that's begun, if nothing else, that you're going to have to fix along the way. But the thing is, everybody can do it.
And let's do it. It's not hard. Let's make it fun. Let's make it where you're not hurting at the same time.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And let's just enjoy it. Now, I wanted to let everybody know that we have a lot of things going on with Survival Mode. We're going to be broadcasting on a network, the IBGR network, every Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. That's really excited. They asked us to come on board, and we accepted, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we've had our first show.
That's right. We did.
And not to brag, but to brag. We were told that our first segment was the best first segment they've seen.
Wow. Okay, I like that one.
So
Okay.
I was a happy boy because I've never been on the radio, so
Okay.
apparently I did it right.
He did a fantastic job. I'll give him
Yeah.
a little credit. A little. Okay, a bunch.
And you may not know this, but he also said that when you were talking, it was great radio voice.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Well, what we're going to do, this is the part 1 of financial principles.
Right.
Next week, we're going to have part 2. And what are we going to talk about next week?
So we're going to talk about putting your money to work, and then also limit debt to income producing assets.
Okay, we can do that.
A lot of big words there, but
We'll break it down for you. Don't worry.
And it'll be fun. We
Yeah.
got stories along the way here.
Oh, we got some serious stories. Graphics too?
Perhaps.
Yeah. See? If you got any comments, please send us your comments. Also, subscribe to Survival Mode, what you're doing. Let's see, what else? What else do we got to tell them?
I would like everybody to start a conversation. Tell us your stories. What's going on in your life financially? What can we help you with? Maybe you got a story of a success of some sort that you'd like to share with everybody. Let's get this conversation going. Let's get people talking about what's going on, and we can help educate each other.
Oh, okay. You can email us, and you can email us at survivalmodewd@gmail.com.
Okay.
That's good. I like that. Once again, everybody, thank you for watching us here on Survival Mode, what you're doing. We'll be back next week with more. Stay tuned.
It's survival mode. What you doing?